Hi everyone, um, it's Guillaume here. Uh, I hope you've been enjoying those 2 days of amazing talks and presentations. I think this is the last one of the conference, and since I'm gonna apologize because since I was having my wedding and honeymoon and I just got back a few days ago. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare like a really nicely edited video for this conference. So I'm gonna just take you to a little tour of the new DevTools and maybe show you a little bit of code on demo. So I'm gonna switch over to my other computer. Maybe I'll look a little bit awkward because I'm gonna look at my other screen. Sorry for that about that. So so the DevTools is a very important part of our offshore ecosystem because we use it and all of our users use it for debugging applications. So um, I've been maintaining this for a few years now, and when we started working on Vue-free, I thought why not like overhauling the whole project and um, maybe taking this opportunity to um, rewrite a lot of things and make it more maintainable and with different set of features and a new user experience. So that's what I've set it to do this year. And you can see the result of that in the source code if you go to our official Vue.js organization and Vue DevTools repository, and you go to the next branch in this repository, and you get the new source code of the DevTools. So let's maybe do first a little bit of demo of the new DevTools. So for all intents and purposes, this is called version 6. So it's not following the Vue versions, but yeah, we bumped from 5, so it's a major new version, and we wrote a lot of things. So we will see uh, what kind of things a little bit later. For now, let's just walk through the user interface. So maybe I should open the old one so we can get both side by side. So it's still written in a Vue.to application. So um, waiting for a few of my on other libraries to migrate to Vue-free before making the big jump. But the nice side effect is that I can like show both the old version and the newest version side by side on my screen right now. So at the bottom you have the current stable DevTools available on the Firefox and Chrome add-on repositories, and you can immediately see, I think, that the top part of the DevTools changed a lot between those two versions. Sorry, and the reason is I wanted to have something more flexible and also because I wanted to allow other people to add new tabs to the DevTools. It didn't make sense to put everything on a single line because you could end up with, I don't know, 20 different tabs if you use um, for example, you could use vue-apollo for GraphQL, and you get Apollo cache tab to inspect what's in your Apollo client cache, and then you could also use I don't know, Vue router and Vue internationalization, and you get a lot of different tabs. And I thought maybe it would get too cluttered to keep them on a single line, just like what we did before. So I went with a totally different user interface. So I tried to give it a little bit of hierarchy. So I started with the top. I think what is the top level in a web page which is using Vue, um, which means the first select you see is showing you a list of different applications which are mounted on the web page. So the entire DevTools, like except the setting page, will be scoped um, on a specific application on the web page. So it will improve. I think it will improve the development experience a lot for web applications using multiple mounted Vue applications, like GitLab, for example, where they like use Vue as a kind of enhancement on top of Rails. So I think it will be very useful for those kind of projects. But anyway, if you only have one application, it will be selected by default. So you won't have to bother with this one. The second level is for the top level pages inside the DevTools, and I structured them differently than before, and I've um, I've put two different main categories of the debugging tool you want to use on your Vue application. The first one is inspectors, so you want to explore uh, how your application is on what kind of data you have, on what kind of components you have, and what kind of, I don't know, route you have or anything. So it's more like providing exploring experience into an insight into your application. And then you have an entirely new concept, which is the timeline, which I will go over a bit later. But basically, those are the top level, the main tool categories for your debugging experience. You also have a settings page, which is kind of like not exactly a debugging tool, but I had to put it somewhere, I guess. And then you can have sub menus. And for example, in the inspector menu, you can have different kind of inspectors. For example, you have the component inspector. You could have the view router inspector to explore what kind of routes you have in your project. And in a lot of big projects, you have thousands, maybe hundreds of routes. And maybe it can help a lot of developers understand how the routing system is set up in the project. And what is nice about this menu is, as you can see here, uh, new pages in this menu can be added dynamically by what I call the Devtools plugins. So here you have a few examples, and those are inspectors which are like provided by JavaScript code on the pages. So imagine that you load vue-router, for example, or Vuex, and then those plugin and packages can provide to the new inspectors to the DevTools. So let's see our component inspector here. So it's basically the same as we had before, and you can do the same pretty much. A few features are still missing, like editing data and editing props, but they are coming a bit later. We're gonna reach feature parity with the previous version. Don't worry. I just reworked a little bit of some features on the UX side of things. For example, when you want to pick a component on the page, it's much clearer than that you can console it with this button, and you can't do something like selecting another component, sorry, while having while having the selection going on, which could cause some issues before. So that's a kind of the kind of improvement I made. So this one is pretty much the same, and the interesting one is the timeline, the new timeline. So you go to under your application in the second menu, and you can go to the timeline page. And this one is entirely a new debugging tool, which we didn't have before. And this one is gonna show you basically a timeline of what's going on as you use your application, so you can see what kind of events pop up and how everything interacts with each other. So I think it's great for like contextualization of things going on. So you get a few layers on the left. You have the timeline in the middle, and by default you get mouse and keyboard events and also components events. So let me close this one and maybe reset the timeline, click on the page, and also type with my keyboard, and also why not emitting some view events here. And you can see that a lot of dots appeared on the timeline. And this way you can see what's going on in your application and see that because I clicked here with those mouse events, I also emitted a view event right just after that. The nice thing is also that you can use this scroll bar at the top to explore the timeline in more detail. Which is very useful when you have a lot of things going on in your application. And you can also clear that and start again. And basically, it's always on recording what's going on in your application. You can see here that there's a layer pushed by JavaScript code from the page again. So Devtools plugins in the page, for example, Vuex or Vue-apollo or vue-apollo or anything, can push events to the timeline to further improve the level of details you have on the things going on in your application. So I think I've covered most of the new like user-facing features in the new DevTools. And maybe I can like take a little bit, a very little tour of the new code architecture behind it. So now in the last versions of Vue-devtools, we moved to a mono repository kind of structure like Vue-next, and then here you can see that there are a lot of more packages than in the previous version. So for a comparison, I'm gonna just switch back to the default branch. And you can see here, maybe I'm gonna zoom a little bit. And you can see that we have a backend, which is code that will be injected on your page to inspect and your application and communicate with the DevTools panel. You have the front end, which is the Vue application, and you have some utilities here, and also what we call shell, because we can use the DevTools inside a web page for development purposes, like I'm doing here. And we can also bundle it for Chrome and Firefox usage, and also into some standalone Electron application. And the new structure is a little bit different. You can ignore a few folder here. Like this one is the old backend folder. You have also a legacy frontend folder because I didn't delete them yet. But you can see here that there are a lot more folders here because I wanted to decouple a few things from the Vue version you're using on the page, because previously we were writing a lot of different conditions to handle the case where you were using, for example, Vue 1 in this application, and then you were using Vue 2, and it was like handling things totally differently. And then when we started um, to work on Vue 3, I thought maybe we should split the logic into different packages and folders so that we can have specific code to handle Vue 1 and then specific code to handle Vue 2 and then specific code to handle Vue 3 as well. So that's why you have here 3 different Vue backend packages. And they have a core and API packages, which are decoupled from any Vue version. So if in the future we were to release a new major rewrite of Vue, we shouldn't have to write a new version of the Devtools as well. And on that way, we can also better provide backward compatibility with all the Vue versions. So this is a big improvement in for maintaining this project, I think. Also, it's using TypeScript now for the backend, the backend. So most of the core logic of DevTools are now is now using TypeScript as well. And the nice thing is you also have this API packages here, which is actually published on npm and or at vue/devtools API. And this is the package you can use in your own packages or even applications to interact with DevTools. And for example, add new inspectors and new timeline layers and events. So you get full type definitions in this one. So you can see you have a lot of you have a few functions, and then you can interact with the whole DevTools APIs, which is publicly available to you on the web page. I also wrote the front end, so still using Vue 2 for now, but we will switch it to Vue 3 as soon as we can, depending on the libraries we depend on the front end. And let me show you this one, which is the development version of a web page where we put the DevTools on a Vue 3 application. So this is the page I've been showing you before. So this is not using the real Chrome DevTools. This is embedded in the web page, so we can debug it with the actual Chrome DevTools. So this one is using Vue 3, and the very interesting thing I wanted to show you here is that I'm using this fake Vue plugin here. So with the app use API, maybe I should zoom in a little bit. So just like any Vue 3 plugin, for example, like Vuex and Vue router. And here's the source code of this plugin. And you can see that when it's being installed in your application, it's gonna set up a DevTools plugin here. So it's gonna be able to interact with the Vue DevTools as soon as they are open in your Chrome or whatever browser DevTools. So you give it an ID and a label. So this will be useful for in the future, showing you that this particular tab in the DevTools is coming from this specific plugin on the page. And then you have access to the DevTools API on the web page. And you can, for example, add new properties on components when you inspect them. So let's say you are using Vue internationalization and you want to add the list of messages you are using in this component and show them to the user on the web page when they open the DevTools. Well, you can with this API. So here you can like get the inspected instance, and then you can add new states to it. So let's see how it looks like on the web page. You can see here that I'm adding like dynamically new properties here. And you can also notify the DevTools that your own state's changed, so you can update the display automatically here. So I hide it every 5 seconds. I'm pushing a new update to the DevTools. This is done here with this notify component update. You can also add new timeline layer here and new inspector here. It's very simple. You give them names and icons. And then when something is going on your inspector, you can send a tree for displaying things on the left side of the inspector. So here we have a small tree, and then you can react to selecting things in the tree. So when I select things, it will like change the information sent by the web page. So this is done here. Get inspector states, and then I'm using a very damp logic to show different things, whether you're selecting the first node or the second one. But basically you are free to do whatever you want. And then you can also push new timeline events here. So I'm just using the mouse up even on window and then pushing a new timeline event here. So that's why when I'm clicking on the web page, I get new gray events in the fourth layer here. So this is opening up a lot of opportunities for plugins, third-party plugins in the ecosystem to improve debugging experience of their users. And also it will help us maintain the DevTools better, because now the Vue-router and Vuex libraries, for example, can directly integrate with DevTools without having us writing specific code to show you Vuex state, for example, or the router history. So I guess that's it for the source code part. And just a little note before ending this. Everything you have seen, and you can see if you download the DevTools, is not finished yet. It's not feature complete. It's not in feature parity, sorry, compared to the previous version, and it will eventually get there. Don't worry, but it's still pretty much a work in progress. You can download the new versions if you go to the GitHub repository and you go to maybe I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. You go to DevTools repository and you go to releases, and you see the version 6 releases we push to the new DevTools, and you can download. For Firefox, you have to download this file, the XPI file, because we can't publish beta versions of the add-on on the official Mozilla repository, but they are officially signed for, so don't worry, there are no security issues there. Or you can go to the Chrome Web Store, there's a link there, and there's also, I think, a link in the main README. Yeah, beta channel here. And you see the little orange pill here telling you that this is the beta version and not the stable one used for Vue 1 and Vue 2. And currently about that, just a note about that, currently Vue 1 and Vue 2 are not supported yet, but they will be supported. And as you can see, I have folders here for 1 and Vue 2. I think that's pretty much a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this little presentation. Sorry for not having slides. I'm back from my wedding and things. So I guess it was okay for you. And I hope you enjoyed those 2 days of talks and Q&A. And I guess I'm gonna give the mic back to our amazing MCs.